The moment you think the Toronto Blue Jays have finally found their balance, baseball has a habit of leaning in and whispering one more complication into the room. Just when the off-season starts to feel orderly, when the roster looks deep and the optimism feels earned, an impossible decision emerges from the shadows. It doesn't arrive loudly. It doesn't announce itself with a press release. It simply sits there, staring straight at Ross Atkins, daring him to blink first. And today on the Blue Jays Report, that decision has a name, a face, and a future that suddenly feels anything but secure. Before we go any further, take a second to like this video, share it with a fellow Jays fan who lives for roster debates, and subscribe to the Blue Jays Report if you want daily, in-depth Toronto Blue Jays coverage. Your support genuinely fuels this channel, and as always, it means more than you know. Now settle in, because this story doesn't just affect one player. It could quietly shape the entire direction of the Blue Jays as we march towards spring training and beyond. The Blue Jays have had an exciting off-season, there's no denying that. It hasn't been perfect, and it hasn't been quiet, but it's been purposeful. The front office added pieces, reinforced depth, and positioned the team to compete immediately. Yet with every addition comes a consequence, and with every layer of depth comes a decision that cannot be avoided forever. An article recently dropped outlining 6 Blue Jays who may not be back in 2026 following a heartbreaking World Series loss, and while the usual names appeared, veterans and expiring contracts, it sparked a much bigger question about a player whose future is far more complicated. This isn't about Chris Bassett. This isn't about Max Scherzer. This is about Davis Schneider, a player who finds himself standing at the crossroads of opportunity and redundancy, talent and timing, promise and practicality. And make no mistake, his situation is becoming one of the most delicate puzzles Ross Atkins has to solve. Davis Schneider does not currently have a defined role on this team, and in modern baseball, that can be both a blessing and a curse. On paper, versatility is celebrated. In reality, uncertainty can slowly suffocate a player's future. According to Fangraph's projections, Schneider is scattered across the depth chart, with appearances projected in left field and at second base, but nowhere does his name feel truly anchored. He's there, but he's not quite there, and that distinction matters more than it seems. The question facing the Blue Jays is brutally simple and painfully complex at the same time. Do you find a way to play Davis Schneider, or do you trade him while his value still whispers rather than fades? Because the roster is crowded, and the traffic jam isn't hypothetical anymore. It's real, and it's growing louder by the day. Look at the outfield alone. Anthony Santander is expected to start most games in left field. Nathan Lukes has quietly established himself as a legitimate major league hitter. Joey Loperfido is knocking on the door, no longer a wide-eyed prospect but a player who wants and needs consistent playing time. Miles Straw occupies a guaranteed roster spot. Okamoto can slide into the outfield if needed. Even Clace lurks as depth. The outfield isn't just deep. It's congested. Then there's the infield. Schneider's most natural fallback is second base, but even there, the waters are murky. Ernie Clement thrives against left-handed pitching. Andre Gimenez is expected to rebound. Schneider himself profiles best as a platoon bat, excelling against lefties but limited against right-handers. The math simply doesn't work cleanly, and baseball, for all its romance, is ruthless when numbers stop adding up. And yet, this is where the story becomes fascinating rather than bleak. Because Davis Schneider isn't just another interchangeable bat. He's an outlier. He's an X factor. And according to analysts like Chris Black, he may be uniquely positioned to benefit from changes coming to the game itself. Black recently outlined why he's optimistic about Schneider's future, pointing to repeatable skills, an elite understanding of the strike zone, and a profile that could thrive under the ABS challenge system. Few hitters in professional baseball have a better eye than Schneider. In AAA, his ability to control the zone was exceptional. If hitters are given more power to challenge calls, Schneider could suddenly find himself rewarded for patience that once went unnoticed. Last season told a tale of two halves. Schneider started slowly, looking lost in April, pressing, chasing, trying to force his way into relevance. Then something shifted. His approach stabilized. His confidence returned. He finished the year with an OPS hovering near .800, quietly reminding everyone that there is real offensive value here if he's given rhythm and trust. But trust requires opportunity, and opportunity is exactly what this roster may not be able to provide. That's the uncomfortable truth. Depth is a luxury until it becomes a bottleneck. At some point, someone gets squeezed, and Schneider feels like the player most at risk of being caught in that narrowing gap. From a front office perspective, this creates leverage and anxiety in equal measure. If Schneider struggles early, his trade value dips. If he succeeds without a clear role, his frustration grows. If another outfielder falters, suddenly Schneider becomes essential. It's a constant state of contingency, and Ross Atkins will need to read the room perfectly. There is also the human element, something spreadsheets can't fully capture. Schneider is no longer content to simply exist on the margins. He's tasted success. He's proven he can contribute. At this stage of his career, he will want clarity, and while trade demands aren't common in Major League Baseball, ambition has a way of finding its voice. The easiest solution, of course, is to wait. Let spring training unfold. Let competition sort itself out. Whoever performs earns their spot. But even that approach has consequences, because injuries, performance swings, and clubhouse dynamics don't always follow neat narratives. There is a very real scenario where Schneider becomes a valuable trade chip, packaged with surplus outfield depth to address another need, most likely in the bullpen. In that sense, his presence is still a win for the organization. Depth creates options, and options create leverage. This is not a problem born from weakness. It's a problem born from strength. And that's why this decision feels impossible rather than urgent. The Jays don't need to move Schneider today. They don't need to commit tomorrow. But the longer this logjam exists, the more pressure builds beneath the surface. This conversation also circles back to broader roster construction. George Springer's health remains a variable. Santander's consistency will matter. Luke's and Lo Perfido will push for relevance. Every outcome changes the equation slightly, and the margin for error is slim. Beyond Schneider, the rotation adds another layer of intrigue. Chris Bassett has been named among those unlikely to return in 2026, yet reports suggest the Jays are still exploring starting pitching options. There have even been rumblings about a potential role shift for Jose Berrios, possibly moving into the bullpen, while Eric Lauer re-enters the rotation. These are not small tweaks. These are chess moves, and they reflect an organization thinking several turns ahead. Projection systems seem to approve. ZiPS currently gives the Blue Jays the highest chance of winning the AL East, with strong playoff odds and a respectable World Series probability. Those numbers are built on depth, on flexibility, and on the belief that several players can outperform expectations. That belief is precisely why decisions like the one surrounding Davis Schneider matter so much. Because if everything breaks right, if the stars align and the depth delivers, this team could field one of the most balanced lineups in baseball. But if mismanaged, that same depth could quietly undermine individual value and long-term planning. That's the tension at the heart of this story. The Blue Jays are strong enough to win now, yet deep enough to complicate themselves in the process. Davis Schneider sits at the center of that paradox, not because he lacks ability, but because he has too many competitors. So I'll leave it with you. If you were Ross Atkins, what would you do? Do you bet on Schneider's upside and trust the system to find him space, or do you cash in while his value remains intriguing? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. And if you enjoyed this deep dive, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the Blue Jays Report. The season is coming fast, the decisions are getting harder, and the story is only just beginning.